This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. Rory Stewart is out of the London mayor race. He made the announcement in the Evening Standard, saying the coronavirus crisis has made it impossible for him to campaign, and he's released a video on social media.
It's been difficult. It's been driven partly by coronavirus. It's been driven also, of course, by the difficulties of keeping an independent campaign going properly for another 12 months unexpectedly. But what I wanted to say, above all at this moment, is the deepest heartfelt gratitude to everything that you've done to work with us.
Our City Hall editor Ross Lydall is with me on the phone, and Rory Stewart's blaming the pandemic lockdown for this decision, Ross, but he was quite far behind in the polls.
Back in March, Queen Mary University of London found he was in third place on 13%, with Sadiq almost getting half of the votes outright on the first vote. He was on 49%. So Rory's chances didn't look great, and if I was a betting man, I probably wouldn't have put any money on him. But however, he was gaining ground. He had only started his campaign in October, so he started from a very late position, and he was gradually getting noticed. But it's not the case really that we've lost the next mayor here. It was somebody who was essentially going to enliven the race, who was quite a dramatic entry to it, and who would really had some very interesting ideas to listen to. So he made quite a notable intervention, but I think it was unlikely he was actually going to win. I managed to speak to him just prior to today's exclusive in the Evening Standard, and asked him as well who he would be backing or endorsing in the mayoral race next year, and he said actually he preferred not to endorse anybody. His view was he'd got to know each of the candidates, and without being rude or unkind to them, felt that he wasn't in an impartial position, and therefore it was probably best for him to stay neutral in terms of giving anybody his backing, which he declined to do.
Rory Stewart's Tory party rival Sean Bailey has wished him well, Ross, on social media. But will Sean Bailey be looking for an endorsement from Rory Stewart now?
People might think at first glance that Sean, as the Tory candidate, would have most to gain. It seems, though, from what Rory told me a couple of months ago when I was asking him where he was picking up his votes, he said actually most had come from the Lib Dems and some from the Greens. So it was actually the case that the Tory vote had held quite firm with Sean Bailey, and that Rory had pretty much eaten into the middle ground, and that with the end result potential that none of them would have had any chance of defeating Sadiq. Quite how things will change in a year's time, it's very hard to predict. Who would have thought we would be in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic? I think what may happen is that this race will become a bit more staid, a bit less exciting, a bit more Londony, and it won't really reach beyond the capital in terms of interesting the rest of the country. But on the face of it, Sean Bailey should at least not lose any more votes. He would look to consolidate his Tory heartland support. He should come second in the first round of voting, and then in the runoff for Sadiq, he would hope to do respectably well. But really, I think the message from today is that Sadiq is the one who's going to win most out of Rory deciding not to take part.
Could Sadiq Khan pick up any stray Rory Stewart voters?
The only person who hasn't seemed to have responded so far is Sadiq Khan. That, of course, may change later today. But Sadiq's tactic certainly was first to try and ignore the presence of Rory Stewart. He didn't want to use his name. And then after that sort of ceased to make any sense, he then said all runners and riders were welcome to join the race too. I think that's a reflection that Sadiq was a bit worried by Rory and didn't really look forward to having to go head to head with him in a debate. Rory quite potentially could have wiped the floor with Sadiq here. Sadiq is a great sort of machine politician. He's great at getting his vote out, but he's not the best public speaker in the world. We should have to wait and see whether Sadiq actually does join the others in saying, sorry to see you go, Rory.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.